Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. It's great to be here with Minister Jones, Attorney General Downey, Associate Minister McGregor, MPP Laura Smith, Mark Baxter, the President of the Ontario Police Association, and Roger Wilkie, Deputy Chief of Halton Regional Police and President of the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. A few minutes ago in the legislature, I had the honour to introduce our Safer Streets and Stronger Communities Act. That, if passed, will enhance community safety and further protect the people of Ontario. As Solicitor General, my highest priority is the safety of the people of this province. I take this responsibility very seriously, and I will never waver in my focus and determination. Our government, led by Premier Ford, will always prioritize protecting the rights of the public over the rights of the criminals, including those convicted of the most serious and egregious offences. And we will never apologize for that. And that's why our proposed legislation would strengthen three pillars of public safety: safer streets, safer communities, and stronger enforcement. The proposed Safer Streets and Stronger Communities Act builds on the previous work of our government, including introducing two pieces of recent legislation: the Enhancing Access to Justice Act 2024 and the Strengthening Safety and Modernizing Justice Act 2023. Both acts have delivered more support to victims of crime and strengthened bail compliance. And today, the legislation I introduced, if passed, will provide added tools for our public safety. If passed, the bill would also amend Christopher's Law to strengthen the Ontario Sex Offender Registry so police can solve or prevent these awful crimes. The registry, the first in Canada, enables law enforcement to pinpoint the names and addresses of every registered sex offender. And to date, Ontario is the only province or territory with its own sex offender registry. With our new bill, we will require offenders to share email and social media identifiers, report receiving a driver's license or passport, and to inform law enforcement in advance of travel outside Canada. The bill will include amendments to improve other enforcement mechanisms, including making the sale of cannabis safer by amending the Cannabis Control Act of 2017 to prohibit advertising and promoting the sale of illicit cannabis. A proposed prohibition on advertising and promotion would apply to both in-person and online illegal cannabis sales. And if passed, the Act would proclaim every November to be Community Safety and Crime Prevention Month. This would provide an opportunity to bring the people of Ontario together to celebrate the brave people working on the front lines to keep us safe. It would also shine a light on local actions that are building safer communities and preventing crime. We're continuing to double down, I might add triple down, on fighting auto theft by establishing a new provincial offence and penalties for vehicle identification number or VIN-related fraud. The proposed amendment to the Highway Traffic Act would introduce fines for knowingly using a false VIN, and this fine will increase for each subsequent violation. The legislation we are introducing today is just one more way our government is delivering on our promise to strengthen community and public safety. We're strengthening tools for police services, improving access to justice, and introducing stronger penalties and sanctions to help prevent dangerous criminal activity that puts people's lives at risk. Public safety is and always will be a top priority for our government, no matter the danger, no matter the threat, and no matter the odds. We are not afraid, and we will not back down. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, miigwech. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our Deputy Premier and Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones.
Thank you, Michael. So the legislation our government introduced today is another step we are taking to support safer and stronger communities while protecting children and their families. We've heard loud and clear from municipalities, community leaders, small businesses, and most importantly, from families and parents. The presence of drug consumption sites near schools and daycare is causing serious safety concerns. Many of us are parents, including myself, or we have nieces, nephews, children of our friends who we love and care for, and who we would do everything we can to protect. Now imagine taking that child to daycare or to school, a process that can be overwhelming, and getting yelled at, harassed, or verbally, physically assaulted. Imagine walking that child in the door of their school or daycare and finding someone using drugs, or seeing an individual defecating or urinating in the entranceway. Imagine getting a call that your child has picked up a dirty needle in the daycare yard, or a bag of unknown toxic drugs during recess time. For many families living in areas with drug consumption sites, these horrific stories are their reality, bringing their child to daycare or school, fearing the safety of their children, and worrying about the long-term emotional and mental impact of witnessing open and public drug use, disruptive behavior, and not feeling safe. Enough is enough, and our government is taking action. If passed, the Safer Streets, Stronger Communities Act will establish the Community Care and Recovery Act to protect children and their families by prohibiting the operation of drug consumption sites within 200 meters of a school, a licensed child care center, or an early on child and family center. The proposed legislation also requires municipalities and local boards, such as public health units, to obtain provincial approval before making or supporting a request for a new drug consumption site, providing funding for a new site, and prohibits them from participating in the federal government's so-called Safer Supply program or applying for an exemption for the decriminalization of illegal drugs. Our government will also not fund any new drug consumption sites in Ontario. Ontarians deserve more than a healthcare system that provides people struggling with addiction tools to use illegal drugs. That is why our government, in addition to prioritizing and enhancing community safety, is taking the next step to create a system of care focused on prevention, treatment, and recovery, investing $378 million to create 19 new homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hubs, or HEART hubs. Like existing hub models in Ontario that have successfully provided people with care, HEART hubs will reflect regional priorities by connecting people to more integrated and comprehensive care than the support services previously offered at consumption sites. These enhanced services include primary care, mental health services, addictions care, and other social services. HEART hubs will also add up to 375 highly supportive housing units in addition to addiction recovery and treatment beds, helping thousands of people each year transition to more stable, long-term housing. Each drug consumption site closing, as a result of our government's proposed legislation, will have the opportunity to convert or transition into a HEART hub to better support the treatment and recovery of individuals with complex needs, including those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, have substance use and mental health challenges, and social service or employment needs. The application call for HEART hubs recently closed, and we are currently reviewing those proposals, with the goal of opening no later than March of 2025. The creation of HEART hubs builds on our government's substantial investment to expand mental health and addiction services.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to join our Deputy Premier and the Solicitor General today as our government tables another piece of historic legislation. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, our government's been crystal clear that the safety of the people of Ontario and our communities is a top priority. This bill is another concrete example of how we're delivering on that promise. The landscape in Ontario has changed drastically in the last few years. We're seeing increased instances of violence, car thefts, and most concerningly, repeat and violent offenders being allowed out on bail only to commit serious crimes on our streets. And as the two officers standing behind me know all too well, we have seen police officers put their lives on the line and be shot or stabbed. We have seen police officers put their lives on the line and be shot or stabbed at the hands of individuals who have demonstrated histories of violent behavior and still receive bail. Exactly 3 weeks ago, I stood in this exact same spot, joined by the Solicitor General, and announced that our government was calling on the federal government to implement substantial, meaningful bail reform. In 3 weeks, we've heard absolutely nothing from the federal government on this subject except for excuses. So today, as Ontario takes another step forward to ensuring safe streets and safer communities, I stand here with my colleagues to reiterate our government's demand of the federal government. We don't want your catch and release bail system anymore. We want meaningful bail reform. We will not stop until we get it. Ontario has stood up. Today is clear proof of that. I hope tomorrow the Justice Minister and the federal government choose to do the same. Now, at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Deputy Chief Roger Wilkie, President of the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister Kerzner, Minister Jones, and Associate Minister McGregor, and good afternoon, everyone. It is always a great day in policing when we can advance the public safety needs of Ontarians. I want to begin by acknowledging the number of police leaders, association representatives, and public safety partners that are here today. Your leadership and voice matters. Thank you for your continued commitment to collaboration and unifying our voice and efforts to maximize public safety outcomes and the needs of our members. Today's announcement punctuates the continued commitment by the province, together with public safety partners, to explore opportunities to modernize how we serve our communities, implement change and efficiencies, and ultimately provide tools that enhance safety and well-being. In particular, the proposed amendments to Christopher's Law will strengthen the Ontario Sex Offender Registry by equipping police services with information that can help them prevent, solve, and investigate sex crimes, including those committed online. Enhanced reporting and notification mechanisms will help to hold offenders who live amongst us accountable, which will ultimately serve to better protect our communities. We also welcome other provisions of the proposed bill, particularly around protecting vehicle owners from fraud and enhancing the ability of our officers to charge offenders for careless driving in private parking lots, rather than the current legislation that restricts charges to only highways and roadways. As we have heard, revisions to the Community Safety and Policing Act will provide necessary clarity on service delivery responsibilities and advance policing modernization efforts by responding to emerging issues related to governance, operational, and technical requirements. The proposed amendments outline process and authority to transfer responsibility amongst services to ensure the needs of our communities are met and cost recovery mechanisms are established. This enhances governance and financial responsibility, which is an absolute expectation of those we serve. Further, the proposed CSPA amendments will provide greater flexibility for police services to navigate temporary assistance requirements in a timely manner, thereby enhancing adequate and effective service delivery in every community. I know that this is a change that every police leader can get behind. Promoting the safety of all Ontarians, modernizing the delivery of policing services, and prioritizing crime prevention and victims are vital components of healthy and vibrant communities. The Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police welcomes these proposed legislative changes, and I want to thank Solicitor General Minister Kerzner, Premier Ford, and members of the Provincial Parliament for their ongoing commitment and contributions to safer communities. In closing, I want to take a moment to commend our frontline, investigative, and specialized support members for the tremendous work they do around the clock to protect and serve our communities. Our policing environment is a complex and increasingly dangerous one. It takes a special kind of person to commit to a life of service. Your bravery, resilience, selflessness are not lost on us. On behalf of police leaders across this province, thank you. We are extremely proud of your contributions and impact. Keep up the great work. I'd like to turn the podium over to Mark Baxter, the President of the Police Association of Ontario.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start off today by thanking Premier Ford, the Deputy Premier Minister Jones, Minister Kerzner, Minister McGregor, Minister Downey, and MPP Smith, along with the Government of Ontario, for inviting the Police Association of Ontario to be here today. Thank you for your commitment to public safety. I also want to acknowledge my association colleagues here from across the province. Thank you for taking the time to be here today as legislation is being introduced that will prioritize the safety and well-being of our communities and will help our members do their jobs more efficiently. The changes contained in the bill introduced in the legislature just a few minutes ago are another example of this government's commitment to community safety. The updates to Christopher's Law represent a critical step in enhancing public safety and reassuring our communities. By strengthening the tools used to monitor convicted sexual predators, these changes ensure our members have the resources needed to safeguard vulnerable individuals and prevent future harm, leaving our community members feeling much more confident and safer. The other components of the bill will further enhance collaboration between police services, allow the minister to properly honor our members for their long service and commitment to their community, and allow for greater enforcement of illegal and dangerous car rallies and racing that are taking place far too frequently in parking lots and private property by making changes to the Highway Traffic Act. Today's announcement also marks a significant advancement in enhancing community safety while delivering essential treatment and recovery services. Protecting our children and supporting those in need are our top priorities. This balanced approach will make our neighborhoods safer. While this government continues to ensure public safety remains a top priority, we continue to be faced with a bail system that is failing to prioritize the safety of our communities. Every day, our members, the dedicated officers sworn to serve and protect their community, leave the comfort of their home to ensure the safety and security of everyone around them. But we are facing a critical challenge. The current bail system is leaving repeat and violent offenders free to cause harm in our neighborhoods again before their cases are resolved. This major gap is putting both our officers and the public at risk. We've seen it far too many times. An individual is arrested for a violent crime one day, is released, and back in the community committing similar offenses the next. This is not just frustrating for the communities we serve, it's dangerous. It leaves Ontarians feeling unsafe in their neighborhoods and erodes trust in the justice system. The shootout that took place here last week in Toronto is yet another clear example of the inadequate bail system. The Police Association of Ontario, along with our colleagues at the Ontario Provincial Police Association, the Toronto Police Association, and associations across the country, have long advocated for meaningful reform to Canada's bail system. The time for change is now. As the president of the PAO and as a father myself, I cannot stress enough the importance of this issue. My children and yours deserve a future where their safety is not compromised by the gaps in our justice system. Police service members cannot achieve meaningful reform alone. We need a unified front from all levels of government to close the gaps in our justice system. The time is now for our federal government to match Ontario's commitment with legal reforms that will truly protect the public. Thank you to the Ontario government for your leadership and to everyone here today for your commitment to safer communities.
We will now take questions from the media. As a friendly reminder, your format is one question, one follow-up.
Mr. Jones, your ministry did an internal assessment of this policy's impact and warned that it will adversely impact people who already experience, quote, disproportionately higher rates of opioid deaths, and, quote, will make drug use and discarded drug paraphernalia more dispersed and visible to the community. Why are you disregarding the findings of your own impact assessment, just as you disregarded the findings of the review of supervised consumption sites you did last year?
You know, we're listening to parents, we're listening to individuals who have had to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. The legislation as proposed is going to put a limit and ensure that within 200 meters of a daycare, an early on center, a school, we do not have open drug use in our communities. That's who we need to listen to, that's who we need to protect. We have ensured through this legislation that we've taken a measured approach not only to shut down the consumption sites that are operating too close, frankly, to our schools and our daycares, but also offering hope in the Heart Hub model so that individuals who need that help, who want that pathway out of addiction, have it through these wellness hubs. Today it might be social services. Tomorrow it might be mental health and addictions treatment. And ultimately, yes, there will be a pathway as well for supportive housing. But the status quo is not sufficient. We need to protect our students and our young people.
If you don't listen to them.
We have a lot of input that we use and provide and make assessments. And I will tell you that when I hear firsthand stories of parents who have had to protect their children, who stop taking their kids to a daycare or a park because there is open drug use, then that's when I'm going to act.
But it says that needles are only going to get spread more around. And isn't this just going to make things worse? Isn't it just going to have more of the drug use in more places with the needles farther dispersed everywhere?
You know, as we see the open drug use that is happening in our neighborhoods, we need to be able to crack down on it. This legislation, if passed, will do that to protect our most vulnerable. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, can you outline the circumstances in which you would still approve a new supervised consumption site?
There is no circumstance where there will be further approval.
Municipalities and local boards to seek provincial approval prior to making or supporting requests for new supervised consumption sites.
So there is a pathway where organizations or municipalities could go directly to the federal government. With this legislation, again, if passed, will ensure that they first have to come to the provincial government for that approval.
Makes no sense.
Is there any
So it would always say no.
Yeah, like if I'm Peel Region, for example, and I go to you and I ask for permission to open a supervised consumption site under the federal exemption, what situations would you grant to the region or wherever that permission?
As I said, the legislation, if passed, ensures that municipalities and organizations like public health units have to first come to the province because we don't want them bypassing and getting a federal approval for something that we vehemently disagree with.
Have you decided the terms of what they would need to meet up, or would that be through regulation? When you submit that request, what criteria is it being measured against?
So the Heart Hub models that we are currently assessing are really...
I'm asking if you were to get permission to get the federal exemption.
I want to be very clear. There will be no further safe injection sites in the province of Ontario under our government.
How many people are going to die from these closures?
We see a rise in opioid drug use in our communities. We see people who desperately need a pathway out of addictions. And our Heart Hub models are going to ensure that there are opportunities for people to actually break that cycle of addiction.
So in a year from now, we will see no rise in opioid deaths, none at all?
In a year from now, you will see Heart Hubs operationalized in the province of Ontario, 19 demonstration sites in total. We will be able to assess the efficacy, the ability for those heart models to actually provide the services out of addiction and into treatment pathways.
So we're involuntary treatment?
There is no mention of involuntary treatment in this legislation. We are very much focused on the 19 Heart Hub models.
If the hubs are delayed past March 2025, would you extend the closure of the supervised consumption sites to ensure there's overlap? So there could be a gap between the two if you're delayed.
We are assessing the proposals right now, and we fully intend to have the approvals in place in time for either a transition to happen from existing consumption sites or, in fact, a wind down of the addiction hub model right now.
I think we're all still really confused about that question that Isaac had asked about requiring municipalities and local boards to seek provincial approval prior to making or supporting requests for new supervised consumption sites. It makes no sense. This is in your release. What do you mean?
Well, it actually does make sense because there are a couple of sites currently that do not receive provincial funding or approval and yet are operating because they went directly to the federal government for an exemption. We are shutting down that loophole to make sure that no further open and exemptions can be made by the federal government.
Let me put it this way. Why did it not say ban municipalities for seeking exemptions through the federal government? Why are they seeking?
And why not prohibit?
As I said, we have said that there will be no further approvals of consumption sites in the province of Ontario under our government.
This will be the last question.
Can the feds overrule? John Woodward from CTV. I have an auto-test question for the Minister, McGregor, if that's okay. We've been doing a series of stories on the devices that thieves use to reprogram key fobs, and police tell us they're a major factor in the crime wave that we're seeing now. We're told that the federal government wrote to Amazon to ask that site to take those products off their website in June. As of today, they're still there. Police very concerned about this. We even bought one. I wanted to ask what you think about that situation.
Look, anybody whose goal it is to steal cars in our neighborhoods, there's one word for that type of person, that's scumbag behavior. And we've been closing loopholes related to VIN fraud. That's coming in this legislation. If passed, we'll have up to 6 months in jail, $100,000 fine for knowingly submitting a false document. We've put helicopters on procurement. They're going to be rolled out to GTA Police Services. We've beefed up investigative capacity. We've got more boots on the ground today. Almost 2,100 officers being trained in Ontario today. That used to be 1,400. We're throwing every we're throwing every solution we can at this problem. Where we are being let down is we need meaningful criminal code bail reform. And it's been a message consistent that we've delivered to the federal government. We delivered that message 3 weeks ago, standing right here. We delivered it in Yellowknife when Minister Kerzner and I met with Minister Virani and Minister LeBlanc. We've continued to say, while we are looking at what we can do to make cars more safe, what will keep cars safe is locking up the scumbags that are stealing our cars and throwing away the key, keeping them in prison.
If you had Amazon here right now, a company that the various stakeholders think is making it easier to steal cars in this province, what would you tell them?
It's ridiculous that this type of thing would be sold on an Amazon website. I'll say on this specific one's one I got to dive a little bit more into, but what we need to make sure happens across the board, we need to make cars harder to steal, certainly. The way that they will be very hard to steal is if we actually lock up the scumbags that are committing the crime. So that's why we're continuing to reiterate our call for meaningful bail reform. There are other things we can do, and we have been. VIN fraud, we've been working with the federal government on better scanners. If we can find more stolen cars and lower the how lucrative it is for organized crime, there are pieces that we can do, but let's be clear, the big solution to this problem is finding the people that did it. Frankly, the police, many of the police standing in the back right now, do an excellent job of that. The criminal code does not do a good job of locking those people up and taking away their freedoms.
Other criminal code changes that you're asking
Well,
for your government.
I think I can only ask one more. Oh, no. All right. Follow up with me later.